How's it going, guys? Cameron here with Canadian Gamer, coming at you with another video. As you can see, we're getting unusually mild weather for this time of year, December. Up in Canada, we tend to get a lot of harsh winters. Well, I don't know. Right now, I don't know if it's because of COVID-19, but we haven't really gotten any snow at all. So definitely unusual for this time of year. And it's like it's really mild out. Me and my buddy are actually going to go on a hike on a nature trail in a few days, so I'm looking really forward to that as well. As far as gaming is concerned, the last couple of days I really got into Gran Turismo 4 on the PS2. What an addicting game. Now talk about a game you could bring with you on a deserted island and never get bored of. Gran Turismo 4 is so good. I honestly don't know what I prefer more, Forza or Gran Turismo. I really like how Gran Turismo has nighttime races. You're going through the tunnels. You know, you got the off-road races as well. The graphics in Gran Turismo 3 and especially 4, my god, I don't know how Polyphony managed to pull that off and pull that out of the PS2, but man, those games look just as good today as they did back then. So other news, Cyberpunk 2077 is basically out in the wild right now. Reviews are starting to trickle in. Fucking Dreamcast guy posted a kind of like an early review video yesterday, and I watched it, and fucking CD Projekt Red took it down right away. Well, apparently the game, I've been hearing a lot of sources say the game is just a buggy, glitchy mess. Now, it's a good game, but apparently the single player, well, I guess is there multiplayer in it? I'm not sure. Dreamcast guy says he beat the game in like 10 hours. IGN says the single player campaign, the main campaign's 20 hours. But yeah, apparently it's just a glitchy mess. So fuck, maybe it is worth waiting 6 months before I pick that one up. So, anyways, let's head back to the games room and we'll continue on with today's video. Stay tuned. Alright, so we're back in the games room. And welcome to any new subscribers that have joined the channel over the last couple of days. I've had a few other channels out there making videos on my channel, and just keeps helping boost up my numbers, gives me some exposure. So welcome to the channel. So yeah, Cyberpunk 2077, apparently it's a buggy mess. I've been hearing this from a few outlets throughout the web today, so I might just hold off on that game for 5 to 6 months until all the kinks are worked out, and then maybe I'll pick it up. So that being said, I've got a fun video today. Well, I wouldn't say fun, but interesting. I want to talk about, we've got here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 things to consider when you're looking to start a games room or a game room in your house or your apartment or wherever you're living. You're thinking about creating a game room. There's some important things you want to consider. So we're going to start off here today with our first, here for number 7, I guess we'll go with, is your partner okay with it? So if you're living with a significant other, you're going to want to have a conversation first and say, listen, I'm thinking about creating a games room. Are you okay with it? Are you on board with it? Because let's be honest here, not everybody is going to be on board with it, you know, especially depending on your situation, depending on what's going on in your life. Maybe your significant other isn't really into video games, or maybe you've got a spare room in the house, but that other person, he or she's got other plans for that extra room. Maybe they want to convert it into a guest room. Maybe they want to do, what's that version of Uber for, it's kind of like Uber, but you can stay over at somebody's house. You can make a little bit of money. Airbnb. So there's things to consider, right? So you want to sit down, open up the dialogue, and have that conversation. You don't want your partner or your significant other to just open up the door to the spare room one day and see that you're building a games room. So that's definitely something to consider. Number 6, you want to make sure you've got adequate space. So I think the key thing here is, like, I can only speak, I guess, for myself, but I rented for a number of years. And while I was renting, I always, for the most part, had a 2-bedroom apartment, and I just didn't like the idea of having a games room in the apartment. I didn't like it. It was already small enough square footage in the apartment for my contents to begin with. I didn't think it was appropriate to start a games room. So it wasn't until after I purchased a house a couple of years ago, and then very soon after I moved in, at that point I had 3 rooms upstairs, and the gears started moving in the head. What can I do to create a games room? And it didn't take long. But that's my stance on it. You might want to wait until you get either a place of your own, like a condo that you own, or maybe a house where you've got a little bit more room, a little bit more space, so you can properly not only set up your games room how you like it, but have enough space moving forward. Because let's be honest here, you create a games room, you're going to start accumulating more things as you go along. And another thing for space too is just considering like how you're going to set up the games room. Like, are you going to have it kind of like an open concept where you don't have anything in the middle of the floor per se, aside from maybe a few chairs, but you've got most of your game shelving units, I guess you could say, along the walls like I have. That's the best setup that I have. But then you see someone like John Hancock, and he clearly doesn't have, he's got a space issue. So he's got his garage, and then he's got an island in the middle where he's got stacks and boxes of games, and then he ran in a room in there and he put an addition on his house. I don't, that's ridiculous if you ask me. But yeah, so space is very important. You want to make sure you've got enough space to, again, not only build a games room, but to allow you to grow it as well. And so we have here at number 5, is it within your budget? Can you afford it? So again, we all are at different stages in our life as far as our income is concerned and our budget and other external expenses. So, I mean, with myself as an example, I've got a lot of older games like OG Xbox 360. While old, it's not so old that these titles are unobtainable. They're still relatively cheap for the most part. So it depends on what you're going after. So when starting a games room, is your main focus like Super NES, Sega Genesis, can get quite costly. And like even myself, while I wouldn't consider it necessarily an expensive collection, it probably would be if you consider if I had to go out and reacquire all these games, however inexpensive that they are, the entire cost associated with it would probably be a couple $1,000s, I have to imagine. So, you got to consider that. Is it within your budget? Can you afford it? If you have other expenses going on in your life, whether it be paying child support, or maybe you've got a house that needs some serious renos, or a car that needs repairs, or you've got some school tuition that you need to pay off, maybe you should pump the brakes on a games room until you have all your ducks in a row or you have all your affairs in order. So it's a very expensive hobby. You want to have a realistic, I guess, expectation as to what you can afford, because you see it all the time. These games collectors that just they get that collector's what would you call it there? Almost like it's an addiction for sure, but it's like a bug. They can't stop hunting for games, collecting games. It goes on and on and on and on and on, and again they start procrastinating on other things in their life, and it can lead you down a very dark hole. So you want to be careful with that. And then we've got here at number 4, do you plan on starting a YouTube channel? So if the reason why I throw that in there, because a lot of people, myself included, you start a YouTube channel, it makes the most sense to shoot your videos in your games room. So if you're building a games room, are you able to set it up in such a way that you can shoot videos in the games room? It's open to interpretation. Some people might just want to sit in front of their computer with a webcam and shoot a video, whereas others, and again, I'm not saying I have the greatest production values in the world, you might want to take a little bit of pride in your videos. Like me as an example, I put up a little bit of a backdrop, like a sign. Got the bookshelf here, and I've got the $10,000 shotgun mic here, as you can see. But seriously, if you're considering setting up a YouTube channel, how are you going to incorporate, I guess, the production values of your channel into the games room? I sort of put my area of where I shoot videos kind of in the corner over here, and I got the TV over here, and I got my computer here, and then the exit to the room is over there. So it works just perfectly for me. But it was planned out. I didn't just set up the games room, and then after the thought of it, well, where am I going to just start shooting videos? No, I before I started building the games room, before I even put anything in this room, I took a step back and I said, where would I position this bookshelf with the video camera to be able to shoot my videos? So it works for me, but it is something to consider, right? So the third item I want to mention here would be time. Do you have the time not only to set up a games room, because it does take a lot of time, but also maintain it, keep it orderly and organized? And do you have the time to spend the time in your games room? A lot of guys out there and gals, they spend all this money, energy, and time creating a games room, and then they're not even in the room hardly that often. So it's something to consider, and I've been guilty of it. I probably don't spend as much time in the games room as I should, given that I put in so much effort into it. So I'm starting to spend more time in the games room lately, but it is definitely something to consider. You don't want to have a games room in your house that's being neglected while you're downstairs all the time, or you're in your bedroom or whatnot. So things to consider. The second last thing I want to mention here, how are we doing for time? Almost at the 10-minute mark. Presentation, or how some of you might say it, presentation. You want to make sure you've got a nice layout in your games room, that it's presentable, so that if somebody walked into the house off the street, they could walk in and not be taken aback by what they're seeing. You want them walking into like a Happy Console Gamer or a Radical Reggie situation where it's just games stacked on top of each other up to the wall. You want to take pride in your games room. You want it to be presentable. You want someone to be able to walk in and not be overwhelmed necessarily. You want them to walk in and feel like they're in some sort of, sure, maybe a man cave, but one that's somewhat organized, right? You don't want to have bags of chips lying around. You don't want to have games scattered all along the floor, and discs out of their cases, and things like that. So organization is key. If you're not an organized person, maybe it's not in your best interest to have a games room. Are you good at keeping all of your Xbox games on one shelf and all your PlayStation 2 games on another, keeping them separate? I'm not saying it has to be alphabetically categorized, but come on. And I guess the last thing I'll mention here, number one on the list, is location. So I guess the way I'll position this is, there's some people out there that have their games rooms, in their basement. I'm not necessarily saying that's a bad idea. I'm just saying be conscientious of what you're getting yourself into. What type of house do you have? Are you near a large body of water? Is your area you live in susceptible to sewer backup? Because let's be honest here, when the sewer backs up, it starts at the ground level, right? The basement. And the basement can be a rather damp place to be as well. So if you have a lot of high valued, expensive items, maybe you don't want to have them in the basement. Now, that being said, a lot of the newer homes these days, the basement is not like a traditional basement from 20, 30, 40 years ago where it's all concrete. A lot of the newer homes, the basement is heated. It's like a full-on man cave down there. So yes, you can get away with having a games room down in the basement. Now, that being said, a lot of the older homes back in the day would have their washer and dryer machines in the basement. Nowadays, a lot of the newer houses have their washer and dryers upstairs. They're either on the main floor, or they might even be on the top floor. Well, again, what if your washer machine backs up? The water is going to overflow, and it's going to trickle down the walls, and then it's going to go to the basement. So just consider your location of your games room. Try to keep it in an area where it's pretty dry. If you live in a house that's got a peaked roof like most, maybe you don't want to have your games room sort of in the middle of the house. Maybe you want to have it in the corner of the house, somewhere like I have. So just be considerate of where you're putting your games, the location. Make sure the games are properly ventilated in the room. You don't want it to be ice cold, but you don't want it to be too hot either. You want to make sure, you guys can't see it here, but you want to make sure the windows are blacked out. I've got both windows completely blacked out in this room. There's no sunlight getting in here, and the reason for that is because it only takes a sliver of sunlight through the window to actually give sunburn to all your games on your wall, where it just fades all the cases. We've seen it before, folks, and it's something to be mindful of. You don't want your expensive games to be ruined by the sun fade. So yeah, location. I can't stress it enough. That is key. You don't want your games room to be in your bedroom. You want to have a designated room for your games room. And again, a basement, again, I don't have necessarily an issue with it. I think more like Metal Jesus Rocks, that was a big issue because that was a concrete basement. Again, susceptible to mold and all those things. So, but then you see other people, I think Dads and Lads Gaming, I think he's got his games room, or at least a part of it, in his basement. And it looks like he's got a full-on man cave down there. It looks like it's carpeted and all the rest of it. So he has the right ideas. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. When you're starting the games room, these are some things to consider. And I know a lot of you guys out there are thinking about starting a games room, and sometimes you just don't know where to start. So I thought maybe if I did a video, it might help somebody out there. I'm sure I'm missing a lot of other things on that could be on this list as well. So if there's anything else that you can think of, leave it in the comments below, and maybe we can have a discussion about it. So I'm gonna leave it there. We're right around almost the 15-minute mark, so I'll leave it right there, guys. I hope you guys have an excellent rest of your week. Thanks so much for watching. You people are wonderful and beautiful, and you take care.